Hello, everyone. Thanks for being here today, and thanks to all these elected officials that they are today with us. We want to recognize this support that we are receiving for members of the Parliament because, for this important initiative. In the next days, we're going to go to Egypt. Dozens of Canadian people to do like a big way, to try to wake up the awareness not only of our government but of the global population in this world. It's like millions has been taking the streets all over in solidarity with the people in Gaza. Thousands has been taking the universities and campaigning there to call for disbursement with Israel. And we pretend to bring this spirit to the border of Rafah, of solidarity with those people that today are suffering famine, they are suffering bombings daily, they are losing, whole families are being erased from the map, and we consider that this is not acceptable, and it's not acceptable to continue having normal relations with an state that they are treating others, that they are occupying their land in these manners. So I'm going to pass my word because I think that it's important that the people in here talk and they express also why they are in here. After, if you want to make questions, I will be happy to answer to all of you.
I am deciding to take time off from my work as a family doctor to join the global march to Gaza because Gaza deserves it. Gaza deserves food, clean water, medicines, medical supplies, and proper medical care. The Palestinian people deserves freedom from this ongoing Israeli siege, blockade, starvation, famine, occupation, apartheid, and genocide. Liberation is good medicine. I don't know what else to do in this moment than to join the global march to Gaza, to demand that humanitarian aid enter Gaza, which Israel has and continues to systematically deny to the Palestinian people. Over a year ago, I made the journey into Gaza through the Rafah border crossing to work in primary care clinics in central Rafah. Before I crossed the border, I saw the aid trucks lined up for kilometers upon kilometers at the border as we drove up. These aid trucks would be systematically held up by Israel from entering, some with their supplies and food expiring, only to have the aid be dumped at the border before it even reached Palestine. It was initially the plan to work at Nasser Hospital, but it was surrounded by Israeli tanks and later besieged and forcibly evacuated by the Israeli military. Now, as healthcare workers continue to do what they can in these impossible situations, Nasser Hospital is on the brink of collapse, with healthcare workers donating their own blood in attempts to save their patients. 5 days ago, the World Health Organization called for urgent protection of Nasser Hospital and Al Amal Hospital, which are the last two functioning public hospitals in Khan Yunis, where currently most of the population is living. A few months later, after my initial journey into Gaza, I was planning to try to re-enter Gaza through the Rafah border crossing. And I watched videos of the Israeli military occupy and destroy the Rafah border crossing on the Palestinian side. The Israeli military has continued their invasion and occupation of Gaza and repeated and further forced displacement of the Palestinian people into smaller and smaller pieces of land. I am seeing ordinary citizens of this world, the people of conscience, take it upon themselves to deliver aid and demand an end to the famine and genocide in Gaza, while the international community has utterly failed to prevent and stop genocide in Gaza. Israel has previously killed activists and bombed past Freedom Flotillas for attempting to bring aid in. The latest Freedom Flotilla was not the first attempt to bring humanitarian aid into Gaza by water, nor will it be the last. We all have a collective responsibility to do what we can, to do everything that we can, to help bring an end to famine and genocide in Gaza. In a few days, we will march collectively to the Rafah border crossing. This time, I won't be attempting to cross it with a small medical team, as I know that doctors can't stop a famine or end a genocide. This time, I will be with thousands of other volunteers and activists from all over the world demanding that the thousands of aid trucks be let in. Because this is what is needed to stop the famine and starvation. And for governments like our own in Canada to end complicity in this genocide. For example, Canadian companies sold $18.9 million worth of military goods to Israel in 2024 last year alone. Because this is what is needed to end the genocide. Because when the people of conscience around the world organize, we are powerful to push our governments to help bring this genocide to an end. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Salma Zahid, Member of Parliament for the riding of Scarborough Centre, Don Valley East. It's great to be here with everyone. In January of 2024, the International Court of Justice ruled that it is a plausible Israel is committing genocide in Gaza. 1.5 years later, the evidence to support this has sadly only grown. I stand in solidarity with those marching to the Rafah border, crossing to highlight the catastrophic humanitarian crisis in Gaza. The situation is dire. Thousands of civilians face starvation and displacement. Only a trickle of food is being allowed in. Canada must champion unimpeded humanitarian aid to deliver food, medical supplies, and shelter to those in desperate need. These marchers are driven to act because they cannot fathom how so much of the world is standing by while every day we see suffering and starvation unfolding before our eyes. We support the marchers' peaceful efforts to draw global attention to this tragedy and urge all parties to prioritize humanity, dialogue, and peace. I call on Canada to press the Egyptian government to ensure their safe passage from Cairo to Rafah. I hope their mission is safe and peaceful, and I hope they succeed in raising awareness of what is happening in Gaza. There must be an immediate ceasefire to halt the violence and to save lives. There must be unimpeded access for humanitarian aid, and hostages and prisoners must be released. As a Liberal MP, I will continue to press the government to back up its words with actions and do all in its power to bring this conflict to an end and get food and aid to those in need. What all we have been seeing is heartbreaking. Kids dying of starvation. As a mother, it is very difficult for me to see those. So I hope there will be ceasefire and peace. Thank you.
Thank you, Salma. Hi, Alexandre Boulerice, Member of Parliament from Rosemont-la-Petite-Patrie. We are standing here today in solidarity with the thousands of marchers that will go to Egypt to reach Rafah in an operation, a peaceful operation to make sure that the question of the famine and the humanitarian crisis in Gaza is known by all the world and put pressure on the Netanyahu regime to bring the trucks of food inside Gaza Strip to feed the people. So we are here in solidarity with the marchers, but we are here in solidarity with the families of Gaza, the Palestinian families that are suffering, that are victims of bombings every day. We see that on television, on our cell phones since 20 months. It has to stop. We want peace. We want to bring food and medicine to the people of Gaza that are suffering right now with famine. Alors, je vais le dire en français aussi. Nous sommes ici en solidarité avec les milliers de personnes qui vont se rendre en Égypte pour aller se rendre jusqu'à Rafah, dans le sud de la bande de Gaza. Mais nous sommes surtout ici en solidarité avec les familles palestiniennes de la bande de Gaza qui souffrent énormément depuis des mois, qui sont bombardées, où il y a des dizaines de personnes qui meurent chaque nuit, où l'aide humanitaire ne se rend pas, puis on est dans une situation de famine. Alors ces marcheurs, ces marcheuses qui viennent de 60 pays dans le monde vont se rendre là-bas pour amener de la sensibilité, informer la population mondiale, puis mettre de la pression sur le gouvernement Netanyahou pour qu'il arrête le blocus et le siège de Gaza et que la nourriture et les médicaments puissent finalement rentrer dans la bande de Gaza. C'est extrêmement important. Et dans ce contexte-là, ce qu'on demande, nous aussi, comme membres du Parlement, c'est que les affaires globales puissent contacter le gouvernement égyptien et s'assurer que les marcheurs qui viennent du Québec, du Canada et des autres pays dans le monde, que leurs droits vont être protégés, que leur sécurité va être assurée et que s'ils ont besoin d'aide, d'être consulaires et que l'ambassade soit prête pour être capable de les aider si jamais il arrivait quelque chose. On espère que cette grande marche internationale pacifique et pacifiste va bien se passer, mais on demande au gouvernement canadien d'être aux aguets et d'être au service de tous ces gens qui vont là-bas dans une intention humanitaire de sauver les vies, de sauver des vies des Palestiniens de Gaza. Je pense maintenant, si c'est possible, peut-être Mme May voudrait prendre la parole. Je ne sais pas si ça avait été prévu.
Merci, Alexandre. Je suis ici aussi avec mes collègues, mes chers collègues. Nous sommes en solidarité avec les militants, avec les peuples, avec le courage de faire ce voyage. We are here as members of the Canada-Palestinian Parliamentary Friendship Group. We have been working together for years. I particularly want to say how much it meant to me that we were able, as 18 members of Parliament from 5 parties in March of 2018, to travel together. Alexandre Boulerice, Gord Johns, and I were in that group, but there was no question that what we saw then was horrific. And that was 7 years ago. And what we see now is a genocide. I want to thank Dr. Yipeng for your courage, for suffering so much in your personal career, for being sanctioned and standing up and now making the trip. I'll be praying for you every day, Dr. G. All of you must be safe. I know you are nonviolent in every step of this march to Gaza. The genocide must end, and I wish I could go with you, be able to live the values we see. There's not enough that Canada's doing, but at least now Canada has joined the UK and Australia, New Zealand and Norway, imposing sanctions against 2 of the most far right of Israeli cabinet ministers, but it's not enough. We hope that the G7 will identify that what's happening in Gaza is a crime and it must stop. J'espère pour les résultats, peut-être, de la rencontre de G7, cette fin de semaine, le 15 juin jusqu'à le 17. C'est une possibilité de faire quelque chose ensemble, mais il y a les autres problèmes avec le G7, mais quand même, chaque opportunité pour les pays du monde de faire les choses de début contre ce génocide. We stand in solidarity, and I just cannot say how much I deeply admire the courage of those of you who are going to march peacefully to Gaza, just as I admire the courage of those going back to remember our dear retired NDP MP friend Jim Manley, who was arrested in international waters on a move to get aid to Gaza back in 2012. Plus ça change. It's more dangerous now. The Israeli government is unmasked, and the way the Netanyahu government is acting, they risk Israel being seen by the world as a pariah state. They are a threat to Israel's respect in the world because right now, Israel is seen as a country that practices genocide, and that is horrific. Merci tout le monde.
Madame Zahid, s'il vous plaît. Can we ask a question? Oh, do you have any more comments from you?
No.
No? Okay. Mrs. Zahid, please.
Yes.
I'm going to do that in English and then in French. So your government announced today that they sanctioned 2 ministers from Israel. What your government can do more? What's the other sanctions they can announce? Because clearly this is John's statement. So.
Thank you for the question, and I welcome the news of the targeted sanctions announced today by the Government of Canada and several other allied countries. In the government statement a few weeks ago, with the Government of United Kingdom and France, we warned that further action would be taken if Israel did not change its policies. Prime Minister Netanyahu dismissed our statements out of hand. So today, further concrete actions has been taken. These sanctions are real, concrete, and significant step that makes clear that Canada is backing its words with actions. Sanctioning ministers of a foreign government is a very significant step. I really want to thank Prime Minister Mark Carney, Minister Hanan, and Minister Jolie, and all who worked to make this announcement today possible, and for showing that Canada can and will stand on principle. So the actions and words of these Israeli ministers, in my view, demonstrate flagrant disregard for international law and human rights. These sanctions are warranted and needed and show that Canada will stand for international law and justice. So it's really very important that Canada always stands for international law and justice. And as a member of the Liberal caucus, I will continue to advocate to make sure that there is a complete ceasefire and humanitarian aid gets into Gaza, because what we have seen in the last over 20 months, starvation should not be weaponized.
Follow up on that, I believe your leader, Mark Carney, and correct me if I'm wrong, but he said that he did not use the word genocide in the electoral campaign. Did you sense a change of tone from Mark Carney compared to the previous leadership of Justin Trudeau in regards to the situation in Gaza?
These sanctions today, I think, is a significant step, and it is really very important that we continue advocating for the rights of the Palestinian people. I myself, along with Heather McPherson, MP McPherson, we and 3 other members of Parliament, we visited West Bank back in January of 2024, and we firsthand saw the dehumanization of the Palestinian people every day, and we will continue to advocate for that. And as a member of the Liberal caucus, I will continue to advocate to the government to make sure that Canada always stands up on principle, and international law has to be followed.
The question was how close is the government of Canada to qualify the situation as a genocide?
So, as I mentioned in my remarks also, that in January 2024, ICJ said that it is a plausible genocide, and they are investigating into that. So, and I think Canada, being a signatory to ICC and ICJ, should accept whatever ICJ comes up with.
Sorry, just not to dominate all the questions to you, but this is, feel free to anyone else jump in after this, but we're the reports that they were sanctioning 2 ministers in Benjamin Netanyahu's government. They're his cabinet ministers. So I'm just, do you think that they should be, these sanctions should also apply to the Prime Minister whose cabinet these ministers belong to? And just to open up to anyone else, why do you think that hasn't happened? And your NDP colleagues, they called for these sort of sanctions, I think, over a year and a half ago. So I just, why now, and why not go as far as that?
Well, thank you, Stuart, for the question. And I do want to thank Salma for her advocacy within the Liberal Party. But like you mentioned, the New Democratic Party have called for those sanctions to be put in place for 18 months. So of course, we're happy to see these sanctions now, but this is in response to what is happening in the West Bank. There was nothing sanctioned for what is happening in Gaza, for the genocide that is happening in Gaza. We expect the government to adhere to international law and to sanction all those that are responsible for the genocide that we are seeing happen, and that includes Netanyahu. And we have called for this for 18 months. So while we are happy to see the government take that step, it is too little and it is too late, and there needs to be some acknowledgement of what is happening in Gaza by this government, not simply the crimes that are being committed in the West Bank.
And then just as a follow-up, Ms. Zahid, you said that the government should follow the ruling of the ICJ, but Canada has accused other countries of genocide. We've heard those accusations been aimed towards Russia. They've been, I think the House almost unanimously voted to put that charge towards China for its treatment of the Uyghurs. But none of those sort of accusations required an ICJ or an ICC ruling. So I'm just wondering why the government, or why that needs to happen in this case. Or why it needs to wait. We need to wait for that.
What all we have seen in the last 20 months is very heartbreaking, and it should not have happened. And it is really very important that we are there for the Palestinian people living in Gaza. This has to come to an end. And as I said previously also, Canada, being a signatory to ICC and ICJ, has to accept whatever investigations they do, and they come up with. They have said that it is a possible case of genocide. We have seen destruction of hospitals. We have seen destruction of schools. We have seen people facing starvation. So I would continue to urge the government of Canada to stand up for the Palestinian people, for the people living in Gaza, and make sure that whatever they can do at the international level to do it and push for a complete ceasefire.
Actually, if I may offer comments.
Yeah, for sure.
I do have a hypothesis as to why, like, our Canadian government has not acknowledged what's happening in Gaza as a genocide. And looking at the other examples that you've given, Canada is not explicitly complicit in other genocides, but it is in this one. And for the Canadian government to actually acknowledge what is happening in Gaza as a genocide is a crime. It is a crime by this Canadian government, by current leaders that are upholding ongoing trade with Israel, ongoing arms sales to Israel, and should be tried for their war crimes. But to acknowledge that, comes with this full array of full acknowledgement of this complicity. And I think there are massive international legal implications for the Canadian government, for the Foreign Affairs Minister, for the Prime Minister, for the Cabinet, for this Canadian government. And it will only be a matter of time for these things, I think, to be decided and to be tried. But I think that is a major sticking point, because to acknowledge what is happening in Gaza as a genocide, there is responsibility to end that complicity. And in fact, as I mentioned in my remarks, Canada has continued to trade with Israel and actually provide lethal weapons technologies, even over the course of last year. And in the backdrop of the Foreign Affairs Minister last year, Melanie Joly, saying that there is an arms embargo, but when in fact there has not been. When Global Affairs has not been forthcoming in their own statements, and these are the statements that get fed to ministers and to members of parliament, where I've met with ministers and members of parliament just last week, and they continue to believe these statements that Canada is not as complicit as the United States, for example, when in fact we are. When in fact there are companies in our own backyards, like in Montreal, like in Ottawa, that are wholly complicit in sending the supplies that build the F-35 fighter jets in the US by Lockheed Martin. And these are the same fighter jets that are flying over Gaza by Israel to drop 2,000-pound bombs on children, on families, on men, women.
Please, now that you have the floor, I wanted to ask you, you're going to march to Gaza. You've seen what happened to the Freedom Float now, you said in your previous remark. What do you fear? Do you fear Israel government of making the same assault on you and France? And I just repeat that in French, if you may. Est-ce que vous avez peur que le gouvernement israélien vous attaque ou autre, comme il l'a fait avec la Freedom Flotilla qui est interceptée il y a 2 jours?
I think my biggest fear, as other activists and people of conscience around the world have already explained, our greatest fear is that this genocide doesn't end. Our fear is that this genocide continues with the world's complicity and silence. And so the least that we can do is to be in full solidarity with the Palestinian people, to do everything that we can to end this complicity. And that includes ending Canadian complicity, because that is our responsibility. That is our duty to end all weapon sales to Israel, to the US, where those weapons are being sent to Israel to continue this genocide, to put those full sanctions in place, to do everything that we can that is also in alignment with international law and international humanitarian law. My greatest fear is also looking back on my life in this period of time and not doing everything that I could have done. And I think a lot of people that are going to the Rafah border from all over the world, and they are traveling right now as we speak from Tunisia as well, by land, to break the siege, because this is a complete failure of the international community and all complicit states that we haven't been able to end the genocide for 20 months now. And so there's a responsibility for everyone in this world to do the most decent thing to end this genocide.
How many people accompany you from Canada?
We're expecting quite a few, so we're expecting anywhere between, like, I think 2,500 to 3,000. But we'll also be joined by thousands of volunteers and activists traveling by land from Tunisia, the Sumud convoy. So we are expecting quite a few people.
Canada or
I could
North
answer more
America?
precise to that question.
Please, yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Well, it's like probably you want to know some data about the march, so that's why I'm here to provide that data. It's like globally we're going to be around 4,000 people joining the march. The convoy Sumud is around 2,000 people that they were crossing the Libya border right now. Walkers, we're going to be around 4,000 from 84 different countries. They are from, I think, 35 different delegations. And one international one that is gathering people that is coming isolated from different countries, so they will be joining into this march. That's why this difference between the delegations and the participants. We are expecting to arrive to Cairo, all of us, on 12, even if some people already arrived already. And from Canada, specifically, we're going to be around 100 participants from all the provinces in Canada, from the north and from the east coast and the west coast. We received more than 700 applications of people determined to join this march to come with us. For security reasons, for our own capabilities to manage the group, and also for the logistics. It's like we have to refuse the most of the people, but from here we want to say this is not going to be the last action. We are determined to continue doing this kind of global actions until the Palestinian people can live with dignity and in security. Because we always talk the other side, talking about their own security, but it's like the Palestinians never appear in any media, in anywhere. No one talk about their own security, their own rights of self-determination, their own right to live with dignity. No one is talking about them. So it's like we are determined to continue doing our actions until this situation is solved and the Palestinians can live on freedom. Also, I wanted to do some remarks because in here, we are in the parliament. We are in the place where usually the elected people do the rules of convivence for everyone. Since the Second World War, like has been creating some structures to rule the world more or less in equity. Sorry, and all these institutions has been blown up by Israel. It's like we are ordinary people, the people that we are doing this march. It's like we are not politicians, we are not companies. It's like we are people that we are outraged about the situation in Gaza and the lack of commitment of our governments to do something. How many people has to die? How many more people has to die in Gaza? How much tolerance Israel is going to have of continuing bombing kids and journalists and medical staff in Gaza? How much? It's like, put a number. I asked to Mr. Carney, put a number. Which is the number that would be acceptable for this government to stop collaborating in this genocide? Which is this number? Put it now. Okay, because this is unacceptable. It's like every day we receive in our social networks hundreds of messages from people in Gaza. I have some of them here on my head. My name is Hamed. I lost my 2 kids, my wife, my cousin, my parents. I'm alone. We are dying of hunger. Please support us. Help us. Donate. Like Hamed, there are many other people. It's like, why these people doesn't matter to the Western countries? Why we are talking about values? We are giving lessons to others. You know, when we are not capable to listen, the families of those people that are also living here, asking for support, that, for example, in Quebec, they are not being allowed to have any kind of health. People that just came from Gaza, and they are not allowed to go to the RAM queue to have health services? What kind of lessons we are going to give to other countries? This is completely unacceptable. And their point of view, as ordinary people that we live on the street with these people, we want to bring these questions here. Because this is the house where the rules are made. Okay, so please listen and act. It's like we will not accept more talking. We will not accept it. It's like we did whatever is respectfully accepted in this society to raise the awareness about this situation. And we were not heard. Why? Why? Because they are Palestinians? Why? Why with Ukraine we have different treatment? Why? It's like we don't have any doubt to talk about the genocide in China or in somewhere else, or when someone commits an act of terrorism, everyone identifies this is an act of terrorism. This is not a debate. The only debate is which is the sentence that this person should have to go to prison. Why we are discussing a genocide when we are seeing it in front of our faces every day? We consider that this lack of commitment, of naming the things by its name, is complicity. It is complicity. It's like, because the same way that we identify an act of terrorism without any expert, legal expert telling us that it's an act of terrorism, we can identify an act of genocide. It's like, why we are debating about that? Why non-action is taken against Israel? Why we cannot put Israel in the same level than the South Africa of the apartheid? Why is that hard for this government and for other governments to put them at the same level if they are doing more or less the same? Even Israel even worse. Israel even worse. And it's like, you are tolerating. So I just wanted to do these remarks because it's like, I'm listening and I'm very respectfully for all of you with your speeches and your support. But it's like we are not politicians. It's like we are ordinary people that we are really upset about this situation. And it has to end. It has to end. Which is the number of this government needs of dead kids and civilians, people on the table to stop this kind of complicity and coverage diplomatically and economically with Israel. Thank you.
That's all the time we had for this press conference. C'est tout le temps que nous avions pour cette conférence de presse. Thank you. This concludes the press conference. Merci.
Merci. Merci.
Is it your cell phone? Yes.